crack it.
Well, welcome to what I call the Win by Noon Morning Routine webinar. I am super grateful that you're all here. I know you have really busy schedules, and the fact that you want to show up here to learn a little bit more about your morning routine means a lot to me, and I'm really committed to make sure that you get a little bit of value out of this, hopefully a lot of value out of it, and we'll kind of roll through it. You'll notice a couple of housekeeping things here as we start, and then we'll kind of just jump right in. I called it Jumpstart Your Morning Routine. Here's the agenda. You have to sort of talk about the why it matters. What I tend to find is that if people don't understand the why, and you're not really connecting with the why, it's really hard to make a morning routine work, because morning routines aren't easy. We're talking about the parts of a morning routine, because not everyone's morning routine is going to be the same. And then we're going to actually then walk through how to build yours. And then I put Q&A at the end. I just put that to remind myself, because you guys can ask questions as we go, right? Suggestions as we go. Part of the changes from my previous version of this webinar came from the questions that I got throughout the webinar and suggestions I got at the end. So feel free to jump in and share as we go. Chat is the best place for questions. There's two spots. You can do Q&A or chat. Chat is a little bit better just because it's easier for me to see, but just know that if you chat or you ask a question, I will see that. And then if it's something I'm going to answer upcoming, I'll ignore it and I'll answer it upcoming. Or if it's something that's pertinent for me to answer right then, I'll jump in. You can save, bookmark, you can actually register for it. There's a little button on the winbynoon.com/calendar for upcoming webinars. If you've noticed, really for the past month plus, I'm really pushing to make sure I've got at least one webinar a week. Any feedback or suggestions you have on other topics, let me know. You'll see that I'm going to start kind of weaving more industry specific, mortgage, real estate, insurance, sales in general, personal brand, productivity, and things just like this, morning routine, into that calendar. So keep your eyes open. Most of them I'll run like I did this one. I'll probably run twice. And not that I won't run this again, but now I probably won't do it, for a couple months at least. And, my goal is a minimum of one a week, and I'd love to actually be doing more. So anything that you think would be helpful, by all means, please love the suggestion on it. All right, I'm gonna turn off my camera, and then, but I'll be right here, I promise. So some of you don't know my background, so I always want to give, just a little bit without boring you with too many details, right? I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I started as an entrepreneur as a teenager, as a kid, selling stuff like skateboards and t-shirts and, you name it. As a kid, I kind of tried to sell it. I went through the entrepreneurship program at the University of Arizona in Tucson. I opened the first privately held business on the U of A campus, a bicycle repair store and a bike shop. That was a high-end bike shop north of the campus simultaneously upon wrapping up my 4 years there. Stayed down there for about 10 years doing that until it got boring. Went back to school, got my MBA thinking I was going to be some kind of highfalutin business consultant, and got dragged into mortgage business where I've pretty much hung around for the past 17, 18 years. Along the way, produced a lot of loans, led my team to my final year where I produced 550 plus loans over about $115 million in production. And so a lot of what I've gathered is through leading a team, it's through my own production. And then I spent the last 2.5 years as a coach. And although I've stopped my one-on-one coaching, I still talk to Win by Noon users all the time. And, really was able to see where people struggled. And, my coaching clients were anywhere from, the CEO of a small independent mortgage company to, someone who's probably one of the top, if he reported his numbers like everyone else, probably top 10 in the US, right? On track to close 1,200 loans this year. And, up and comers. And then, most in the mortgage space, although I did have a husband and wife veterinarian, long story, won't go there. And then along the way, a little over 2 years ago, stumbled into the secret of my success, which was Win by Noon and the strategies that I talk about in there. And although this isn't a Win by Noon specific webinar where I'm going to talk about Win by Noon, certainly it'll be woven in to the fabric of the conversation. And so just know that what I'm talking about is coming from my own experience. It's coming from my coaching clients' experience, coming from my team's experience, it's coming from my friends in the industry's experience, and my time in the coach's seat. And then of course, a lot of you, my Win by Noon users. All right, we're going to do a quick poll here. This is where you guys got to pay attention or it's not going to work. So I'm going to launch the poll. I got 3 questions. So first question is how consistent are you with your morning routine? Now, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but what I find is when I teach a webinar like this, most people aren't rock stars because that's why you're here. Although I would say that I did have one person last time who said they were a rock star. All right, a couple more you need to vote still. All right, so you guys are pretty evenly split between none, that's why you're here, and in 1 to 2 days a week. All right, so then we're gonna check, here's our next poll, you ready? Oh, whoops, this was supposed to be the first question. Do you have a morning routine? So let's just answer that one real quick. It's kind of funny that it reversed my orders. In fact, let's just, we're gonna skip that one. We know that. Let's talk about what's in your morning routine for those of you who have a partial morning routine. And so some of you, you may not have what you consider a morning routine, but you're doing some of these things. So you just take a moment and vote and just let me know what it is you're currently doing. That'd be great. All right, so we got a lot of coffee drinkers, some water drinkers, exercise, study, read, and learn, email, social. That's awesome. All right, so I would say this, real quick while we're talking about it. I did get I'll see if I can find it quickly. I thought about this in the car this morning. I said I should find that, and then I didn't. But I got one of the messages I got last time. She said, "Hey, thanks for the morning routine webinar. You inspired me. I realized I have a routine. It just sucked. Went back to my planner, added an exercise 4 days a week. If I don't take care of myself, no one else will. Started my day off right. Have a great day." And she said it's been going really well since then. So at least one person last time has executed the morning routine and reported back. And so I already asked you guys if you had one, and most of you admitted that you didn't or it wasn't very good. Here's what I believe, right? Whether you think you have one or not, you actually do have one, right? You get up and you do something every day. It's just not very good. And I'm not saying that to be a jerk. I'm just saying to point it out because as I talk to you transparently, right? I mean, I'm a work in progress myself. And I'll talk through again where I've been super successful, and I'll talk through where I've struggled. I'll talk through the things that impact me and all the research that I've done. So those of you who have one, right, you all said that you're not a bunch of, let's call it super achievers when it comes to morning routine. The question I always ask is it consistent? Because in the end, it's really critical that you think about this filter, not just for morning routine, but for what you do and what you believe in and what you stand for. Is it consistent? And so I just want you guys to be thinking of that as we go through these things, because I want you to have that filter of, can I make this consistent as I go through these ideas. So we're going to talk for a minute about why it matters. And, again, I think what you're going to find is that you've heard a lot of these ideas before, but you're here for a reason. You're here for kind of a little kick in the butt, right? So just like the person who said, "Hey, Todd, that's exactly what I needed." That's what you guys need. You need someone to remind you, and that guide is me, right? I'm the guide today who's gonna remind you. But I'm gonna walk you through some of these why it matters piece. And me, I like quotes. The secret to your success is found in your daily routine. And so I put this here, and it says daily, not morning, intentionally, right? I got a bunch of quotes on morning routines too. But I really like this idea of, hey, what is your daily routine like? And then again, there's building blocks, and one of them is going to be your morning routine. After you talk about, is it consistent, then you talk about, well, have you mastered it, right? Because ultimately, your goal of consistency is it leads to mastery. And so then you're going to ask yourself, your other level is, hey, have I mastered it? Because oftentimes as a coach, and when I go out and speak, people are like, yeah, I do that, Todd. And then I say, well, great, do you do it consistently? And, again, like half will say, yeah, I do that consistently. And the other half will admit that they don't. And then I'll ask the people who said that they're consistent, and I say, well, have you mastered it? And again, that's just a different idea. Sorry, there's sounds like a fire truck going by. Oh yeah, big fire truck. And And I think you have to look at it from that perspective. And then you have to ask it, well, is it a habit then, right? And I would think if you've mastered it, that it is a habit, but be thinking through, again, that lens. And some of these are, you might say are redundant, but it's intentional because different people have different thought patterns, label things differently. And I just want something here to resonate with you so that you understand that, yeah, you have morning routine. Most likely it's not very good. Some stuff in it's consistent, right? Like even when I didn't have a morning routine, guess what? My coffee drinking habit was consistent, right? I mastered the coffee machine. And then I think that this is the last and most critical question is, do your results prove it, right? I mean, think about that for a second. Because if you've mastered something, then it's going to lead to results. And what I would tell you is that when you listen to people who are super achievers and they talk about their morning routines, they talk about the fact that of how it changes their mindset. They talk about how it changes their attitude. They talk about how it gives them momentum. They talk about their energy. And when you have those things and they're positive, then you're going to get better results. If you're lacking energy, right? If you're lacking momentum, if you wake up and you're not excited about your day, then it's really easy to have results that don't prove it, right? We all kind of get stuck. I was emailing with a Win by Noon user who's been part of some of my programs in the past, and he just said he's kind of not feeling the mojo right now. He just doesn't have momentum. And it was funny because I shared with him in an email back that, I think when I hit the middle of this year, I kind of was in that same place, right? My morning routine wasn't as great as it had been. I didn't have a lot scheduled for Win by Noon. I wasn't doing my one-on-one coaching. And I thought, what, I'm just missing my own mojo. And I said, well, where should I start? And so I started with my morning routine. And I spent my time, and I'll go through these building blocks in a few minutes, walking through, well, where do I get my energy? What are the things that I can do every day to get a start? And lo and behold, all the ideas came out. And that's when I said, well, gosh, I better do some more webinars, right? I love doing webinars. Gosh, I should roll out a new group coaching program. I loved my group coaching program. You know what? I already have a waiting list for my next Win by Noon certification. All right, let's just finalize those dates. And so all of a sudden, by spending the time and doing the things that we're going to talk about, I was able to get momentum. And now, guess what? I've got the results that go along with it. It's also important to talk about what your morning routine is not, right? This is what scares most people off of a morning routine, right? Waking up at 4 a.m. Jocko Willink, who I love, he's like, it should have a 4 in front of it. So I know a lot of people that wake up at 4:59. And I've been there myself. And I would tell you, I wake up between 4 and 5 most days. I'm really into sleep, and I'll talk about that as we start talking about some of the things that can impact your morning routine. And I would tell you that I set my alarm every day based off of when I go to bed. And it's, I was up at 4:27 this morning. And again, I'll explain to you later why that was the case. But it's not about me. It's about you and what your morning routine looks like. Now, remember, statistically, 40% of you are early morning people. 40% of you are mid-morning to early afternoon people. And 20% of you are evening and night people. And that's really important to remember. Because ultimately, in the end, it's understanding your body, right? When does your body thrive? And then how do you start off your day in order to best take advantage of when you have the most energy? And oftentimes what I find is that people who are super late night people doing, again, some of you have momentum in the evening, and some of you have a habit of staying up late, but could be earlier mid-morning people. And so I don't want this to be an excuse for you if you don't have good hygiene around when you're going to bed. But you all know your bodies. You're all grown-ups here. You're all successful business people. And so just be aware of that, because we want to build our morning routine and our wake-up time around when that is. And so I want you to know that I'm all about your morning routine starting whenever you choose to wake up. So don't feel like I'm going to tell you, if you're not up at 4:59 tomorrow, that you suck. Just know that actually it doesn't matter to me. I want you, as we go through this, to be thinking about, well, when should my morning routine start? How should I set that time? And then we're going to walk through that in the building block section. Now, this is one of my favorite Darren Hardy quotes. And, again, those of you who know me know that Darren is a friend and really one of the people that I credit with a lot of my productivity thinking. And there's a lot of others, and I'll quote some other folks as we go through this webinar who've influenced me. But I love this for a couple of reasons. He says you can only control 2 times per day, the beginning and the end. It's chaos in between. And, certainly I love the fact that you can only control the beginning, because that's the whole point of Win by Noon, right? You can only control the beginning of your day, what you do first, before you allow other things to impact you, input into your day, emails, phone calls, texts, and then you're reactive, right? And so in this case, I'm applying it to the morning routine piece, right? I can wake up and choose how I'm going to approach my day. And then you'll hear me talk about the evening piece, right? I've already kind of mentioned the evening part of it. But an evening routine, ironically, is the most important part of your morning routine. It's how do you wind yourself down so that you can actually get the best night's rest and get yourself prepared for an excellent morning routine. Hence the reason you'll see I'm going to spend more time on that. What I find in all of my research and all of my conversations and in my own personal experience, that lack of energy and time are the 2 main obstacles of optimizing your day. And I like that word optimize, right? Because there's no perfect day, right? I just don't think that there is. I mean, maybe sitting on the beach with, your cold beverage of choice is a perfect day to you, but I'm just saying there's no perfect work day, right? It's optimizing to maximize your efficiency, maximize your productivity. And again, we know if we start off our day right, that we're more likely to do that. I'm going to pause for a quick commercial. Now, I'm not very good at self-promotion, but one of the things I've decided to do is make sure that I start talking about some of the upcoming pieces. So some of you on this call have been part of my group coaching program that I did in the past, but I'm actually going to offer an advanced version of that starting in October. So we're actually about 5 weeks away from the start. It's going to be a 3-day-a-week group coaching program, 30 minutes of teaching and 30 minutes of Q&A. And it's going to be a small mastermind. And that's really the way that we're approaching it. It's sales, productivity, personal growth, accountability, and personal brand. And it's a short commercial, so I'm not really going to give more detail on that, but I am going to give you an opportunity just to jump on a quick call with me. Oh, I should say this part too. The whole goal is to close more transactions, right? I mean, in the end, that's what we all want. We all want to do more business, and you're all here to learn how to be more productive, to do more business. And so, this program is going to be focused in these areas, really tactical, with industry-specific parts, but you can just jump on and schedule a call with me. In fact, I think there's already a couple of you who have committed who are on this call, so I'm excited that you're here and that you'll be part of it as well. And we've got a couple of spots left in the initial group as we're going to keep it small. Just go to callwithtodd.info to schedule a 30 or 15-minute conversation with me. Back to our regularly scheduled program. My sense of humor is not very good. I should warn you guys that. I should talk about my sarcasm, and I'm also trying not to talk as fast as I usually talk, if you haven't noticed. So let's just talk about the parts of a morning routine, right? So kind of the why is we need energy. We need to optimize our day, and we can't control time, right? That's hard, but we can control our energy. We can optimize our energy. And so we got to look at what are the parts of a morning routine. And I'm going to give you some examples in a few minutes of some people that you may have heard of or may not have, who consider themselves or are considered by their industry as super achievers and with great morning routines. And so I don't want to be morbid, but you have to wake up to have a morning routine. And again, I think it's a matter of choosing when and how you wake up, right? And, in an ideal world, you wake up naturally, right? Oh my gosh, I get up, I have my 7 hours of sleep or 8 hours or whatever your body needs. And you'd wake up without an alarm clock. And I know people who do. And my first summer of coaching, when I stopped working, on the day-to-day of the mortgage team, we rented an apartment in New York and, had terrible curtains and the sun was coming up, but I was up between 6:30 and 7 every day, right? I'm a early birder, but there we stayed up later. I slept in a little bit more, but I woke up without an alarm clock for 2 months. It was really, really awesome. But you got to choose how you're going to wake up. Right now, if I had the video on, you'd see I actually have my Apple Watch on. I use my Apple Watch to wake me up. I also use it to track my sleep, hence the reason that I wear it, as it seems kind of odd to sleep in it. You've got to drink something in the morning. Now, you can read all the different research on it. I already admitted I'm a coffee drinker. But most of the research would say that you need to drink water in the morning. And then again, it depends on who you believe. Some people say drink a cold glass of water. There's a lot of research that shows drinking a room temperature, slightly warm glass of water with lemon in it, that this gets your body going, right? You're trying to get your body moving. And there's a lot of research that says don't drink coffee first thing in the morning, but I'll tell you, I drink both, right? I'm a sparkling water drinker. I pour a 16 ounce, my insulated pint glass, since I'm not a beer drinker anymore, sadly. Well, at least I never was that early in the morning, full of water. And, I drink 16 ounces of the sparkling water, every once in a while flat water, but typically sparkling. And then I drink a cup of coffee, and then I'm a bulletproof coffee drinker too. So then I actually drink that later in the day. Bulletproof, if you're not aware of it, it's by a guy named Dave Asprey. And Dave puts grass-fed butter or ghee, right? So it's a kind of frothy, and then MCT oil in there. So it's a high-fat drink that's meant for people who do intermittent fasting. Again, a whole different conversation, but I'm happy at any point to answer questions on stuff like that. But it's really gives energy without dietary impact. It's non-glycemic index, technically. Keto, if you guys are familiar with that, it's a lot of people are into keto or into that. So you got to drink something to get your body going. Isn't that a cute cup of coffee? Meditation is kind of huge. In fact, I've done a bunch of research recently on meditation, and I'm kind of debating. I don't call myself an expert. They call it a meditation practice for a reason. And it's been hugely impactful. More importantly, it's been impactful on other people who I've encouraged to meditate, family members, friends. And if you follow someone like Tim Ferriss, if you don't know who Tim is, he's got one of the original big podcasts. He's written a couple of books, Tools of Titan, Tribe of Mentors, the 4-Hour Work Week, which he's famous for, and a bunch of other 4 hours. But he says that when he interviews a lot of his super achievers, that 85% of them have some type of a meditation practice in the morning. And I think that there's different options for it, right? You can just learn to meditate. I threw a couple on here of the meditation apps. The one on the left there is Headspace. That's what I personally use. I just got a family membership. So now I've got, not all of my children, but most of my children and my wife. It's been profound for her. There's one called Calm, which I have not used, but you can get it for free, like on Spotify. In fact, Spotify has some of the Headspace on there as well. I've heard good things about Waking Up from Sam Harris. And the one on the right is Oak. It's a free one. I mentioned Tim Ferriss. His first podcast ever was with a guy named Kevin Rose, and Kevin has made some money in tech, and he's created a free app which has breathing exercises and meditation in there, and it's a good app as well. Gratitude, especially those of you who are Win by Noon users know I'm all about having a gratitude practice, right? There's a lot of research out there that talks about the fact that if you just spend a couple of minutes writing down what you're grateful for, that it's really hard to be in a bad mood and be grateful at the same time. And so, thinking through what that looks like now, there's studies that show journaling your gratitude increases well-being and life satisfaction. There's actually lots of studies on this that show this, and therefore, if you haven't done it, try it. Now, for me, I try to come up with things that are different every day, but I'm grateful for my family every day, and I just try to come up with a different something that I'm grateful for. It could have been grateful for, going on a date with my wife or one of my kids last night. It could be grateful for a family dinner. It could be grateful for something that someone did or something that someone said. But I always try to change it up a little bit, and so I would encourage you to do that too. A friend of mine's name is Ben Hardy. Ben is the #1 writer on Medium. So if you don't know Medium, it's kind of like social media for people writing articles. I don't know what else you'd call it, but he says every morning you have the opportunity to trigger a mental and emotional state that sustains throughout the whole day. He is kind of a profound thinker, and he's written a lot around morning routines. And he is an author of a couple of books, and I'm drawing a blank. So in case you wonder why my voice faded, I'm looking on my bookshelf behind me. Willpower Doesn't Work. That's his latest book. And it's a great book because he talks about environment and how, we don't have willpower to keep ourselves from doing things, but if we have our environment set up, we will. An easy example of that is food, right? I love chocolate, and I can have really dark chocolate as part of the health plan that I'm on, but I eat a lot of it. I don't have a good off switch. And, it's funny. If there's a chocolate bar, I might eat the whole thing. The weird part is when there's no chocolate bar, guess what? I have willpower not to eat it because it's not there. And so it's the environment, right? Having things around you. We'll talk a little bit about that and how it applies to your morning routine in a few minutes. Now, certainly those of you who are a Win by Noon user, that's why we put the gratitude piece in here. Ironically, that was feedback that we got from others during the beta testing period, was that gratitude would be really important to them. And I wasn't as committed to the practice prior to Win by Noon. And so it's been actually one of the things I've enjoyed the most about it. We also have highs of my day in Win by Noon. For those of you who are there who use it, and those of you who don't, it's at the end of your day, right? It's the highs of my day, which is it's the bookend to gratitude, right? Hey, what went really well today? What were the fun things I did? And again, for me, I actually do the highs of my day the next morning when I'm doing my gratitude. And the reason I do that is because for me, when I'm winding down, I don't want to look at work. And so when I've got Win by Noon out, it's got all my work notes in it. It's a distraction to me, and it because of the fact that I might be trying to write down something and be peaceful, and then boom, there's some note there about some person that I'm forgot to call or something. I'm like, oh shoot, and then again, it's just then my mind starts rolling on that versus that piece. But I do know a lot of people who love that part and use it at the end of the day. It came to me originally from Daniel Harkavy, who's the CEO and founder of Building Champions. Daniel does a game at his dinner table called, he calls it low high. I call it high low because I'm a glass half full guy, not a glass half empty guy. And so my family learned this tradition from his family, which is going around the table and saying, what's one thing that was the high of your day, and what's one thing that was the low of your day. And right now, I would tell you that my wife just has us only doing highs of the day. She's like, I don't really care about lows today, because typically for my kids, it'd be like school or someone was mean to me. And then high of the day oftentimes is the dinner or the time that we have together. Top three things, right? Again, so this is actually part of a morning routine, is what are my top three things that I have to do? And so I'd throw in a couple of things here. So I've got the handout that I'll send you guys is the morning routines of super achievers. And so one of the people that you probably haven't heard of, but I've met her through the Genius Network. Her name is JJ Virgin. She's a health and fitness expert. She's got the JJ Virgin Diet. It's a New York Times bestselling book. And she says she begins her morning schedule before bed each night by reviewing the next day's agenda and planning her day before bed. She goes to bed by 10 p.m. every night, wakes up around 6:30 a.m. without an alarm clock. Once awake, she brushes her teeth, drinks coffee, and takes her supplements. Next, she writes her short and long-term goals in her intentioning journal with as much clarity as possible, how she wants her day and week to go, or what she is grateful for, and positive thoughts for each of her sons. Finally, she makes a protein shake, bathes, dresses, and gets on with the rest of her day. And so, again, she's looking at her agenda for the next day, right? Darren Hardy would say that, he looked at his day to see, does it line up with his vital few things that he needs to do, right? So again, depending what your role is, if you're a real estate agent, you might say, hey, my top three vital functions are lead generation, lead conversion, right? That might be one. And then buyer consultations and seller consultations, right? As a leader, for me running a team, right? I was business development, I was partner consultation, and I was client consultation, right? So again, depending on your role will be what those things are. And so Darren Hardy would call his calibration meeting. He would look at what his day was like in the morning to make sure that if there's something on there that needed to be punted to the curb because it didn't help him with his overarching goals, then he would immediately cancel it. And I know a lot of people who have this as part of their morning routine. And so when you use your vital few, it's understanding what is it that you're best at and what is it that you want to do. I would tell you that most people, when it comes to the win by noon piece of it, don't put that in their vital few in there every day. Most people put in there, what are the 3 things I need to get done today? But I would encourage you to start thinking every morning as part of your morning routine possibly, or what are the things I'm best at? Where do I have the highest contribution? Maybe even where do I have the highest hourly rate, right? Where am I actually spending my time that's going to make me the most money, close more transactions? Read or listen, right? Again, it's a great time to learn. A bunch of you already said that you do this. And so again, a building block of a great morning routine is going to absolutely be reading something or listening to something. Now, spiritual reading wasn't one any of you picked, which is fine, but I think that it's a big part of a lot of morning routines. And knowing what that would look like to you. Thinking reading, right? I think they're just spending time reading to learn, right? So I'm odd. I actually read a few books at a time, and one typically on health for the last, year and a half, almost 2 years, and 1 or 2 or 3 on business. And so I've got a few going as we speak. Listening to, so I would throw out there, podcasts are great. Audible's great. You can listen to all these on higher speeds. I really think that's why I talk so fast now. I think I talked fast prior to listening to those things, but I do listen to most stuff on 2 to 3 times the speed. It takes getting used to. The other one I threw on there is Blinkist. If you haven't heard of Blinkist, it's like a $70 or $80 subscription, but it is book summaries. And so I've had it for a couple of years, and I kind of go in and out of listening to it, because what will happen is I make a list of books I want to hear the whole thing of, but it's a great way just to get a taste of some books, and you can read a summary or you can listen to a summary in there. Exercise, right? We all can benefit probably from moving our body, and I'm not meaning you got to become a marathon runner, right? Exercise can mean different things to you. My wife and I, we were in New York last week, and for us, exercise was walking in Central Park. So Tuesday before we flew home, we walked from the north end to the south end of Central Park. We took a cab up that direction, met our middle daughter who's starting her senior year. We moved her in the dorm the day before, and we walked. But that was a great morning routine, part of the morning routine for me. Could be yoga, could be running like you see here. I put F45 on there. That's where I was at 5:15 this morning for 45 minutes sweating away, and I burned like 600 calories, but that was a little worn out until I had my lunch here. So I think you have to think through what are the building blocks of your routine, right? And I don't think it's going to be perfect every day. You just don't have time for it every day. And so let me just sort of walk you through how to build your morning routine, and then let me walk you through some of the pitfalls, and then I'll read you a couple of more examples as we go through of some other super achievers and sort of what they're doing. And, if you guys think of something different that I didn't mention in the above part, gosh, let me know. I'd love to hear it. In fact, let me just throw in a couple real quick that I would throw out there. So those of you in the real estate world, and if really it's great for any selling industry, is a book called Ninja Selling by Larry Kendall. And in there, they actually lay out what they think you should be doing every day. He said, gratitude, right? Give thanks for what you have, those around you, and who you are. Never take anything for granted. Every day is a gift. Positive reading, read something positive to start your day, even just a few pages. Affirmations and visualizations, focus on a goal as if you already achieved it. He says, write things down 25 times your goals. And my team is actually doing Ninja Selling as a book club right now. And so people are writing down those goals. Then he says, write 2 personal notes, focus on others, right? So again, that's kind of a cool idea as well. So let's start with a Pringle. I should have made this a survey question. Have any of you never eaten a Pringle? I'm hoping the answer is no. I don't eat them today, but let me just tell you the story of the Pringle and why I think it's important. With a Pringle, if you've ever eaten one, you can't eat just one, right? Like you eat half the can by the time you're done. They're pretty addicting. And there's a gentleman whose name is Lee Brower, and Lee is a financial advisor out of Salt Lake City, Utah. He is a coach for a company called Strategic Coach. And he's known, although I don't know if this is what he's a gratitude rock guy from the movie The Secret. So whether you liked that movie or not, I love that piece of it. around gratitude. He carries a rock that reminds him in his pocket to remind him to be grateful. But he told us a story when my wife and I spent some time with him about the Pringle. And he said, what is your Pringle? And where it came from was the great basketball coach, John Wooden. John Wooden coached more NCAA championships than anyone else. And he had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when he was still called Lewis Indoor, or names Lewis Indoor, Magic Johnson. I mean, he had some of the greatest players of all time on his team. And Lee had the opportunity to be friends with him and go meet with him. And ironically, John had told Lee he needed to read the Bible. And so Lee's added into his morning routine, waking up and, reading some significant verses and chapters of the Bible. And when he went back a few months later to spend some time with John, Coach Wooden said, I guess we should call him Coach. Can't call him John. With Coach Wooden, Coach said, hey, how are you doing on that? He said, I'm not doing very good. He says, well, what do you mean? He said, well, I don't have time to sit down and read, verses and chapters every day like I thought I would. And so I'm really failing where I wake up and I just don't have the time. And Coach said, I didn't tell you to read chapters or verses. I just told you to read the Bible. I want you to start with one line. And he said, because then once you start reading one line, then you will read maybe a verse. Maybe you'll read a whole chapter. But he said it's not the quantity of doing it. It's just the act of doing it every day. And I bring that up because this morning I set my alarm for my sleep time, which this morning was 6 hours of sleep. So I set my alarm for 6 hours and 15 minutes after I went to bed, and it went off. And so I didn't have enough time getting up at 4:27 and having a 5:15 class to do my full morning routine. And so for my meditation, I actually only did a 3-minute meditation, but I still did it. It was the Pringle of doing meditation. And I squeezed it in. I didn't squeeze it in, ironically, until I was in my car out front of F45 because I wasn't sure I was going to have time based on if I got stuck at the 2 traffic lights between my house and there. And I got there and I had time for 3 minutes where I could still get in there and not feel rushed in there. I probably could have squeezed in 5. Headspace has a daily Headspace. You can go 3, 5, 10, or 20 minutes. My goal is always 10 minutes, but it was a Pringle. I just did a short version of it. So my question for you is, what's your Pringle? What will get you started going? For my wife and I, an exercise, for her, it's getting dressed in our running clothes, because once she has her running clothes on in, probably the 15 years we've been runners, we've only put on our running clothes once or twice where we didn't actually go run. That was typically because we started cleaning the house or doing something else crazy instead. So my encouragement for you guys when you're building your morning routine is find your Pringle. What will get me started, right? Is it I get out of bed and brush my teeth, right? If you read Morning Miracle by Hal Elrod, he talks about brushing your teeth because it wakes your body up. He talks about drinking the water because it gets your body going. And he says, once you get out of bed and do those things, you're not going to fall back asleep. That's his Pringle, right? What's yours going to be? Absolutely prep the night before. Like this morning, I didn't want to wake my wife up. And so I had my clothes out so that I could get into them quickly. I also knew I had a short morning. So what do you need to do tonight so that tomorrow morning your morning routine is better? Now, the other thing that Daniel Harkavy taught me was your morning routine starts the night before. I already kind of hinted at this, but I think it's really important because how you go to bed is going to determine how you wake up, right? If you go to bed in a bad mood, you watch something violent, you watch the news, whatever those things are that you might do, it's going to impact your sleep, and your sleep is going to impact your morning routine. And so this is something that I've really been focusing on. And, I'll tell you, you go through waves where you just don't do it as much. My daughter is into a couple of TV shows. And so, I want to spend time with her and I want to be into what she's into. And so I'll watch a TV show with her 1 or 2 nights a week. And guess what happens when I do that? I stay up later than I want to. And guess what happens when it happens? I get less sleep than I want to. And so, so think about that piece of it. The other part is you want to write it down. And then, of course, I put and review it. Like, again, we already talked about journaling and being intentional about it. What I found is that when I thought about my morning routine, it was okay. When I wrote it down, so this is out of my current quarter Win by Noon, right? My habits of success, right? There's what my morning routine looks like. Meditate, stretch, read, no screens until 7 with a real goal of 8, right? So right now I'm off of my screens. It might be rare. Like if I'm traveling, I might get up and, clear my email before I'm going to hop on a plane. But, and then you can see my evening routine, 1 hour of no screens. I'm trying to read before I go to sleep. And then the 3 hours I'm trying to stop eating, stop eating 3 hours before I go to bed. Ironically, because guess what? If you actually don't eat 3 hours before you go to bed, your stomach is done digesting food and you sleep better. So these are things that are all, really critical. And what I found was when I started writing it down, then it became more real to me. Right. And so, you've got to track it too. Like, what does that look like? So again, if I go back to here, you'll see here, I want to go to F45 3 days a week. For me, that's Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. I want to run 3 days a week. And then I'm trying to do push-ups and sit-ups in between as well. But you got to track it. And again, that's why we built it into Win by Noon. It's not a Win by Noon commercial because you can track this and anything, but ultimately we've got the habits of success in there so that you can say, hey, did I do these things? Yes or no. So speaking of gratitude, thank you for being here. I got a couple other things, so don't jump off quite yet. But I do want to say thank you. I started off in gratitude saying I appreciate you taking the time to be here. I do want to read real quick Tim Ferriss's his morning routine that he says help him win the day. He said he attempts to do these every morning, but realistically, if he hits 3 of the 5, he considers himself having won the morning. And if you win the morning, you win the day. So I like that. And I like the fact that he's okay with the fact that he's not going to hit all 5 of his. He says he makes his bed. It takes 3 minutes. And if you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the morning. It will give you a small sense of pride and it will encourage you to do another task and another. That's his Pringle, right? Ironically, I've done this 1.5 times since I did the last webinar. And it was hilarious because my wife was like, wow. She's telling my daughter, wow, Dad made the bed this morning. And then I started the other day because I got it like partially done and then my wife came in and finished it up. So I can't really take credit for that. But again, here I am talking about it transparently and I'm committed now. I will make my bed tomorrow. He meditates 10 to 20 minutes. You should have some type of daily mindfulness practice. He does 5 to 10 reps of something. Right? He says it takes him less than a minute. He says the 5 to 10 reps here are not a workout. They're intended to prime him and wake him up. It's a dramatic effect on his mood and quiets his mental chatter. Again, I find if I do my push-ups pretty early on, guess what? It gets my blood pumping and gets my energy going. He prepares, right? He says he calls it his titanium tea, 2 to 3 minutes to mix a tea with coconut oil or MCT oil powder, both are which good for cognition and fat loss. And then he says while drinking his tea, he does his morning pages or a 5-minute journal. He spends 5 minutes answering prompts such as I'm grateful for, what would make today great. And he does daily affirmations like I am, trying to be positive, and writes down 3 answers for each. And this forces him to think about what he has as opposed to what he's pursuing. So I think about that, right? What does he have versus what he's pursuing? And he said he just doesn't always hit all 5, but he says he can always knock off at least 1. And if you tick off 3, I find the likelihood of the day being a home run infinitely greater. So I've got some other of these. And so again, I'll be sending out an email to you guys tomorrow for coming. I would throw in a couple of other thoughts real quick before you go. You really have to review and adjust because again, you might try to squeeze too much in. You can see my list. It has a lot on there. What I tend to find is I only have time to read one thing in the morning or listen to one thing in the morning. Sometimes I'll combine it with now my exercise. My wife hurt herself, sadly, so she can't run. So if I'm running by myself, I might actually listen to something while I'm running. I might also read in the morning as well. And, but you got to adjust, right? Like figure out what works for you, what's giving you energy and what's not. Because if it's not giving you energy, guess what? You shouldn't do it, right? Figure out a different way to do it. And just think through what else you can do to prep your day, right? You heard some people, kind of get granular, like, then I have a shake, then I take a shower. But, how does that all fit in, right? For me, school just started for our high schooler, right? So now I help get her out the door. I drive her to school. That changed my schedule. Before I left the house at 8. Now I'm leaving the house at 7:30. Guess what? I had to adjust my morning routine. So just know you're going to have to do that. You're going to fail. I fail a lot at this. You're going to fail today and don't worry about it. just get up tomorrow and do it, right? That's the whole point. Tomorrow's another day. And I would tell you that, again, if I can crush it on this 5 days a week, for me, I know I won. I should do something 7 days a week, a morning routine. Like I said, you have one every day, whether it's a good one or not, is a different story. For me, vacations are truly hard. I mean, I can tell you I've spent a lot of time this year, more than I think I ever have, in hotels. And it's going to sound dumb, but like, if I don't like doing push-ups and sit-ups on a hotel floor. So I tend not to do those things, right? I can meditate there. That's not a problem. I can read there. That's not a problem. But guess what? It's hard for me to read if my family's there, because they don't get up at between 4 and 5 like I do. And so when you've got other people in the room, you have to be cognizant of that. So for me, vacations are really hard. Just warn you, think ahead when you're going on vacation. How can I squeeze this in, right? Especially if you're staying out later, or what that looks like. Sleep. I already mentioned sleep. Now I'm a super sleep nerd, and you're going to see me talk more about sleep. I do a lot of sleep research, and there's some great sleep books out there. And what I would tell you is that, the whole, hey, everyone needs 8 hours of sleep, I don't believe in, but I do believe in sleep cycles. And that's a 90-minute cycle where you have different stages of sleep, right? Light sleep, deep sleep, REM. And in the most research says that those sleep cycles are important. The average person takes 15 minutes to fall asleep. My target is 7.5 hours of sleep. If you looked at my intentions, my habits of success, and my goal is to never go more than 3 days without at least having a day that's 7.5 hours of sleep. And so since it takes the average person 15 minutes to fall to sleep, I normally set my alarm for 7 hours and 45 minutes. And then if that falls between 4 and 5, then that's what I'm doing. If not, then I'm setting it for 6 hours and 15 minutes like I did last night. So last night when I got into bed, 6 hours and 15 minutes was 4:27. And so that's, again, I just tell my watch, hey Siri, can you set that for me? And the watch does it. There are times where I get into bed and 7.5 hours of sleep is later than I want to get up, and 6.5 hours of sleep is earlier than I want to get up. I've gotten up actually just a couple of times this year, but I've intentionally gotten up a couple of times this year before 4 o'clock, like 3:38, 3:43. And that's just because I was super tired and I just needed to go to bed. But normally I'll stay up and I'll read. And again, I get super nerdy about my sleep. I wear these yellow glasses that cut out all the blue light. I already told you no screens, right? So I'll watch a movie with my family. I'm wearing my geeky yellow glasses. But again, you're training your body that your circadian rhythm, that's time for bed. And so I won't bore you with more details on that, but just get a good night's rest. And then we talked about food already. I said I try to get done eating 3 hours before. It's actually the hardest thing and where I fail the most, primarily because I go to bed early. Because I get up early. I should have said that too. Most people, when they joke about it, I told you the whole 20% of you are late night people, but there's a lot of people who are jerks about it because they say, well, just go to bed earlier. And the funny thing is that if you set your alarm at 4:30 or 5 or whatever it is every day, even if you're a late night person, guess what's going to happen? After 3, 4, 5, 6 days of doing that, you're going to be a lot more tired early. And guess what? You'll start going to bed a little bit earlier. But I'm talking about people having energy at night. Like I know a lot of people who love to work out in the evening. I know a lot of people who actually get a lot of work done in the evening. I don't. I'm just out of energy by that time of day. But there's a ton of research, obviously, that if you fuel your body for, to optimize, let's use that word again. And I'm super nerdy about food, and I won't talk about that. But ultimately, the one thing you can do is stop eating before you go to bed. And, again, I eat spicy food before bed, I don't sleep as well. If I eat a lot of sugar, which I don't eat much sugar, but if I do, guess what? I don't sleep as well. So just think about how you're fueling your body when you're eating. Sitting, right? Again, there's a lot of people who say that sitting's the new smoking, right? That it's causing a lot of people who have office jobs to be less healthy. And so, if you guys notice me here, I got a stand-up desk, right? So I'm standing at my stand-up desk. It's a fancy electric thing. I push a button and it goes down. And so I'll sit down when I'm done, but I'm trying to rotate between standing and sitting typically about every hour to 2 hours during the day. So just be cognizant of that, because if you stand all day, you'll be tired and you'll need to sit or later, but just make sure that you're helping yourself create energy. So this is a great time. If you have questions, let me know. Again, I would love to talk to any of you about the advanced operating system. So if you want to ask about that, just do the schedule a call with me here at callwithtodd.info. Next week's webinar is increasing client engagement, how to use HomeBot. So if you're a realtor or you're a loan officer, it's a great product for you. And I'll walk through how to create client engagement with that. You don't have to have that, but it's a big piece of it. And I've had so many people ask me to teach them about HomeBot that is next week's webinar. I believe it's Thursday again at noon. Don't quote me on that, but go to winbynoon.com/calendar. Again, if you've got questions for me on the operating system or anything else, really go to callwithtodd.info. I'm happy to chat with you. And I'm just hanging out. I have no questions. You guys are a quiet group today, but ironically, there's more of you here than when we started, so that's always a good thing. Appreciate all of you taking the time to be here. I'll hang out for just a few more minutes. So if you guys do need to jump, go ahead and jump. If you do have questions or any thoughts or suggestions, hey, Todd, you should have talked about this. I would love those. It's a great way to do it. Or you can always email me as well, just todd@winbynoon.com. Yeah, I'm definitely appreciative of all of you showing up here. I guess I should put myself back on video. Let's do that. There I am standing at my stand-up desk. So you should stop shaking the table. But yeah, thank you all again for being here. It's always weird on one hand because I'm looking at myself, which is odd, and plus it's backwards. But I'm always excited to get on here and talk. And again, I hang out with all these entrepreneurs, and my buddy who teaches a lot of classes, like, you should be teaching it all, looking at your audience. And then there's the other people who say, no, just have that screen going. And I don't have a script for this, right? Normally when people put up a PowerPoint like that, it's because they're trying to read a script. And so I'm really going just from trying to have a conversation with you guys about it. The only thing that I've got written down are those morning routines that I talked about. So this is the takeaway that I'll send all of you. And it's got some other examples from other folks, ironically, a lot of them who I know, which is kind of cool now, and some of them who I don't. And so I got positive feedback on this handout after the last time that we did it. So I'll be sending that your way. And then again, if you guys have other ideas or suggestions for any other webinars, I would love that feedback. I'm actually, like I said, I'm actually working on a few different ones right now. I was looking to see where my research is, but my research pile is not here on my desk. But sleep, meditation, email, ironically, how to be better with email. When I did my original loan officer operating system at the tail end of last year, I did a segment on email and how to be more efficient with it. People just loved that. So now I thought, well, all right, let's make that better. And so I've got a nephew who's heading off to law school, and I put him in charge. He was my chief researcher for 2 weeks, and he did some research on email stuff. And so that's one of the ones that I'm working on. Trying to think what else. Those are probably the big ones, but I would love some other thoughts from all of you. With gratitude, I'm digging in deeper on gratitude. So again, a lot of these things you'll see more of. So thank you again for being here. Would love any of you who are looking to grow as you head into 2020 to jump in on that advanced operating system. Like I said, we've got a really good group so far. If you're a Win by Noon user, guess what? They're boxing up Win by Noon right now, all the custom editions. So those of you who have custom, those came in yesterday, and then we're getting another shipment in today, tomorrow, and on Monday, the last shipment. So Win by Noon Q4 will be out next week. That'll be kind of exciting. We continue to get better and faster at getting it out sooner. And as always, if you need something, holler. If not, appreciate you all for being here. Thank you much, and we will talk to you soon. Crack it.